Very good. Thanks for joining us today. It's 1:30, so we will begin the Liquor Control Board meeting for today. We have a few items on the agenda. Tatiana is not able to join us today, and so we do have a quorum, and we will begin with agenda item number 1, approve minutes of the April 17th, 2024 regular meeting. If there are any changes or corrections, otherwise we will accept a motion.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments, any changes or corrections? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, review liquor applications. And 2A is KHP Fargo LLC doing business as K-Pot Korean Barbecue and Hot Pot Class FA to be located at 4410 17th Avenue South, which is the former Johnny Carino's facility. And with that, and I apologize, but it's Steve Sprague. And what is your name?
Angie Bear.
Angie Barrett?
Yes. Bear.
Bear.
How do you spell it?
Bear.
There you go. I can remember that, so I apologize for that.
That's okay.
So Angie will get us started today.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner and Board. So K-Pot Korean Barbecue and Hot Pot, they are looking for a new FA full service license. This has a bar allowed. Food sales must exceed alcohol sales. As stated, this is in the former Johnny Carino's building. It's an interactive dining experience, Korean barbecue restaurant. There were no concerns found in the background check, so we're looking for approval.
Very good. Does anybody have any questions? Or I don't know if the applicant is here, doesn't look like it. So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
I have
Anything to add?
a question
ahead.
on the criminal history. Indicate that there was a search attempted, but there's a $95 fee. Was the criminal background history done then?
So I guess I would have to defer to the police as to whether or not the background check or the criminal part was done. Generally, what they do is they look for free access to information. And then in North Dakota and Minnesota and the tri-state area here, they have access to information. This business is one that is expanding. They're doing franchises throughout the nation. They're heavily based on the East Coast. I don't know, Chris, do you want to answer the question on the background check? If they didn't want to pay the fee, right?
Correct, but we would still do our check through the publicly available information. So I don't think that would prohibit us from identifying any issues that might come up. So.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions?
Well,
Go ahead, Bob.
I'd like to follow up on that. So the applicant didn't want to pay the fee?
No, it's not the applicant that pays the fee. Fargo PD would have had to pay
Okay.
the $95 fee to have access to more detailed information that would have been available. I
Okay.
think it was through New York.
Okay, that's fine.
So can I ask one follow-up question? So basically, if you don't mind, officer, telling us, so you do a check and then maybe if there would have been more concerns, then maybe you would have followed up. Is that how you would describe that?
Correct. Absolutely. So if there was something that we saw in the public record that we'd want to find out more,
Right.
then yes, we would have moved ahead and paid that fee to get more details about that.
Okay, I don't know if that clarifies it for you or for everybody else. But
fine,
any,
yep.
any other questions? Very good. Thank you. If we're ready for a motion, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion. Do you have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And 2B, this one I don't think I can pronounce very well. It's PKPHAM Incorporated, doing business as the Nail Company, to be located at 3706 Merrifield Drive South, Class CW, and you want to delay this till June. Steve?
We, when the report came back from the PD, we had some additional questions, and we've reached out to the company a couple of different times. We have not heard back from them yet, so at this point, We're just going to request that we just delay that until the June meeting.
Okay, so if one of the board members is willing to continue that, make that motion,
I will make that motion.
do we have a second?
Second.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I'd like to just make a quick comment on that. You know, this is a trend that we have a lot of different type of businesses getting into beverage alcohol. And I just wanted to point out that historically, you know, however it started, but I think there was good reasoning by it, and we can go into that when this comes back up. But companies that serve beverage alcohol, where beverage alcohol isn't a major part of their revenue or a major part of their business model, traditionally have been thought as riskier to give these type of licenses. And we've seen barbershops that add on, et cetera. And this is a type of expansion of licenses that I think we need to put a raised eyebrow on going forward. So that's my comment.
Very good, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, all those in favor of continuing this to the next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And three is the police department monthly report and the general report.
All right, good afternoon, Commission. Captain Chris Helmick filling in for Chief Cebulski, who's away in DC for the Police Week. I don't have a lot to report to you this month, just a couple of things I'd point out from the Chief's report. As we've had in past months, the windbreak was one of our higher calls for service, but when I actually took a look at some of those calls for service, a lot of those incidents were tied to the Flying J because they share the same address. And so I think we need to do a little bit better job of filtering that out in the future. But looking at the few incidents that we did have at the windbreak, there's really nothing of concern. There were a couple of fights with the security staff there for individuals who didn't agree with being escorted out. And then we had a domestic that occurred there as well. So really no concerns that we noted at Windbreak or any of the other establishments this month. One other thing that I would point out, that we did have an incident at the Cairo, which is the new establishment located where the Summit nightclub was at 4554 7th Avenue East, 7th Avenue South. We did have a shots fired call there that happened earlier in the month of April. We did recover some casings, but that case is still under investigation. But at this point, that was the only incident that we had there, and that was not, like I said, it's still under investigation at this point, but we don't have any other concerns with that establishment, so.
So can I ask you, if you don't mind, with the windbreak, so we had an issue with over-serving, and so would you say there haven't been as many, when you look at what's been going on recently?
Correct. April was a pretty quiet month overall, so looking through all the incidents that did occur, there was really no indication of any continuing problems there. And we do have a sergeant that continues to stay in constant contact with the ownership there just to debrief some of those incidents and work through them. But no major concerns from this month.
Can I ask you one more then? On the Cairo, it was a new owner that was kind of their first as far as having a liquor license. And so we were going to have an officer kind of be a liaison with them, even though it's a newer place.
Yeah.
Are we going to do that? Because I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but we were concerned that they knew what the standards were and things like that.
Yeah, and full transparency here, we have not established that liaison, but we were heading that direction, where that's going to happen here in a very short period of time. Just to make sure that we don't have any other further incidents like this that happen.
Well, and I know you only have so many officers and so many the ability to do so much, but I just think, especially they were a brand new to get a license and to so anyway,
Yeah.
whenever as soon as possible, and I just think that would be good, kind of from our perspective, to be proactive. And I think Steve, from the perspective of knowing what the liquor license holders' responsibilities are, if you're brand new, sometimes they don't know. And so I just think whatever we can do, and I know we have limits to the staff and things like that, so thank you for what you do.
We'll do what we can.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I have for you, unless you have any other questions.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Very good. Last item on the agenda is other items, and 4A is review server training compliance audit performed by Brady Martz. Steve?
Thank you, Commissioner. Every time I come up here, I gotta pull this mic down, you know, it's. We gotta put a little step stool up here for me. So one of the things that we did when we took away server training from the city conducting server training, and we made it an online server training. We also said that we were gonna follow up with compliance checks by having an outside entity do the compliance check. So, as of last fall, we had about 210 liquor licenses. So divide that by 3, we're gonna do about a third of them. So we checked 70 this year. And out of that 70, we had 29 that passed, that had done their server training, and 41 that failed, that had not done their server training. So in consultation with our city attorney, this is like a first failure of an administrative penalty. And so we will be providing notice to these 41 different businesses that they failed the server training test, and that they're subject to the $500 administrative penalty for our first failure.
Can I ask what what a failure consists of?
Not being server trained. And so what Brady Marts did was they contacted the different businesses, and the businesses were to provide their server training rosters, their certificates that they would have gotten from the North Dakota Safety Council. And when they didn't provide them or didn't respond to them, there's like 3 or 4 of them that didn't respond at all, just ghosted them. And so we just consider that a failure too. So.
Okay.
So, and obviously this is the first year that we're doing this, correct? And so-
Correct.
And so would you say, I mean, some of them, like, it was complete, like they just didn't respond to the whole thing? Or was it that they didn't have 100% of their employees server trained? Or how would you describe what was because obviously this is a high number. And so what are we doing?
Yeah, so, well, back when we were doing the server training and we were monitoring the server training, we really had to hammer people hard in May to get up to compliance. And we considered compliance that 80%, you know. Really, with the way that this is set up now, with it online, you're not waiting for a class. You know, when you come in to onboard somebody, you know, they've got to fill out their I-9. You got to get information from them. You sign them up. It's online. You can do it 24 hours a day. You can do it anytime you want. Make them do the server training test, and then you're done, right? So it should be 100% compliance. It shouldn't be anything less than that. But this is just monitoring. And if they couldn't provide the documentation that their employees that had server training, it's a failure. Now, what I anticipate is when we send out letters, a lot of people are going to go out and get that server training. Then I think that you guys can make a decision. Okay, now they've got their server training, you know, but at this point, we're considering those 41 failures, and we're going to provide notice. I'm going to be gone in June, and so we're going to set up I don't know if you'd call them hearing dates, but their date to come to you in July, so the July meeting.
So Steve, if you don't mind, is it that we didn't send a correct message, or did we not? Because I mean, this is.
I don't see this as a failure on the city's part. There's 29 people that understood and got it done,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
I would say this is really typical of what we used to see when we were doing the server training. And then we would be having classes 3 times a week and trying to, in May and June, trying to get people so that they were compliant by June 30th so we could renew their license. So it doesn't surprise me too much. I am disappointed that it's that high. If the numbers were flipped and were 41 pass and 29 fail, I would have been a little happier. But anyway, it's.
But don't you think part of it is we have to set the expectation that when you hire somebody, they do their right then.
Yep.
When you're like you said, when you're doing all the other things you have to do when you hire a new hire, this is part of that.
Sit down for an hour and do the server training class. There's like 10 questions that you have to answer at the end. They're common sense questions. Of course, I didn't pass all of them when I did it. I think I got an 8 or a 9. But anyway.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
So this is just a heads up more than anything. In July, we're going to send out notices, and there'll be potentially up to 41 You know, and we can have a discussion with city attorney and say, you know, if they come into compliance by the time we have that hearing, are we okay? You know, some of that kind of stuff, but
That's disappointing because, I mean, part of it is it's on them and it's online and it's.
well,
you
we,
can do
we
it
tried to
when-
make it easier for them by making it online, you know, rather than having to line up a class, you know, and all of that type of stuff. So, you know, maybe it's coming down to, the people not want to pay the $25 because once you have server training, you're trained and you could go to a different business, but, I don't know.
Okay, I guess. Go
Real
ahead,
quick,
go ahead,
just
Robert.
anecdotally, I was wondering if, like, say somebody has 25 servers, and if there was one that wasn't there, was that a fail?
You know, I'll have to double check with them to see, if they considered that. But, I'll get a little more
Well,
information on
it'd
that.
be
Bob.
interesting to see the statistics, like if somebody had 25 people and nobody was server trained.
Yeah,
I mean, to have some, you know, a sense. I could see where occasionally somebody's going to slip through the cracks. We had that happen
right.
recently, and not that they shouldn't be, you know, that shouldn't be brought up, but that is that's a staggering number for that 41 people.
So Commissioners, if I could jump in just real quickly. This was a recent change of the mandatory server training, that it be completed before the individual engages in the stream of service that has been defined as any bartender, manager, server, security, door attendants, or any employee with the capacity to determine compliance with laws. That qualification was required before they actually engage. And then if the licensee is found to be not in compliance, this is under qualifications 251503. The license renewal for the upcoming year may be denied or delayed, and then failure to comply with this section may result in administrative or other penalties. And so those are the repercussions of not having that mandatory server training.
So if there's any other comments or questions, but this topic will be coming up to us. But I do think part of this is just getting people used to the standard is different than it used to be, and also the process is different than it used to be. But to me, if you're hiring now, this is what you do when you hire somebody.
Right.
So, any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll move on, if that's okay. We'll move on to 4B, request from Faux Delicious to reconsider compliance failure and server training failure. Steve.
So we had this previously before you, and you voted this, you know, to approve the failure and uphold the penalty. I did not provide proper notice, and so that's why we're bringing it back here. So just a little background. So Faux Delicious, obviously a restaurant, you know, concentrating on serving food. So Faux Delicious, I got the records from Public Health. They've only been checked twice in compliance checks, and they've failed both times. The first time, the server was the owner, was the manager. You know, he was doing it all, and so he ended up going to court, municipal court, and I believe our Assistant City Attorney Will Wisher said that he was relieved of any penalty or any wrongdoing or whatever. And then he also came here and we forgave it too. So again, 2 checks. It was over, I think, a 24-month period. If it had been less than 18 months, it would have been considered a second failure. And then the penalty would have been $750. But it was more, it was about 24 months or 20 months, something like that. And so it ended up being over that time period. And so it's considered a first failure. The other part, and on this case with this one, is that the individual was not trained, and not server trained. And so I guess my only comment is, you know, if we don't follow the rules that we've established, then we really don't have rules, right? So if it's okay for, you know, him to serve somebody under 21, you know, then why is it wrong for somebody else to serve somebody under 21? And, you know, you'll hear a lot of times that they did the math wrong or something like that. Well, one of the things you find out in server training is that a minor's driver's license is vertical and has a red bar on it that says the person is under 21. And so there is no math to do. Once the person turns 21, and they get their adult license, the license turns horizontal, like you all and I all have. To me, I don't see a reason to not uphold the penalties that are proposed. And those penalties are a $500 for failure to be server trained and a $500 failure for failing a compliance check.
And I guess this is my question. So the other thing is we have scanners now. Is this something, could we require them? And obviously now we are providing them. Could we require them? Maybe this is a question for Nancy Morris. Could that be part of the conditions that we require them to use a scanner for a certain amount of time? Or is that something that we aren't able to do?
Yeah, that isn't presently in the ordinance. There has been considerable discussion about will you require it, when will you require it, and how will that be provided? What are the specifications for that scanner, and so forth. So I think that's an ongoing discussion.
Okay.
And I believe, yes, it could be required as a result of a failure or mandatory going forward. But again, that's not in the ordinances at this time.
So right now, it's really not an option. And the thing that, I mean, right now, especially when we would provide it for no charge, to say you were required for either 6 months or a year to use one of our scanners, I think that would be a good thing. But I get, the other thing is we have to follow the law, and we don't want to do something that's not allowed. So I don't know if you have any comments about that, anybody here, but to me, this is, part of it is, I just think they're not doing it correctly. And so if you're not doing it correctly, then you're not following the rules.
As an aside, my wife and I went out to Frying Pan, and hey, I saw their little flyer. They have beer, so I ordered a beer, and I didn't have any City of Fargo identification on, nothing like that. I've never met the server before. She said to me was, "I need your driver's license." I said, "Oh, why?" "So I can scan it." So the Frying Pan takes your driver's license and goes and scans it at the scanner. And then once I passed, being of age, then she brought back the driver's license and a beer. So to me, it really comes down to corporate philosophy or business philosophy. Is this something we're requiring? Obviously, I don't think anybody would confuse me for somebody under 21, but that was their policy, and that server followed their policy. So, yeah.
So if we wanted to put it in the ordinance, what do we have to do to put that in the ordinance? Because what you talked about with the Frying Pan, and my experience in Nashville was, this kid carded me. He's like, I'd card your grandma. And I'm like, well, she passed away. That'll be hard. But, I think that is a good point. And I would like to see that we move forward with that we put it in the ordinance, because it should be something that we can have them do in order to fix this issue.
Nancy, would you comment on that? And what would be the process be if we proceeded with that?
Well, I think there's been some discussion as to what class license would be required to have the scanner, if it's all licensees after a first violation or at all times, and what are those specifications. I don't know if this body is prepared to make a motion to send it to City Commission for recommendation that scanners be used XYZ, it need a little more information. And then the City Commission would then direct the City Attorney's Office to work with the Police Department and the Auditor's Office.
Go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, why wouldn't we require that for any license?
Exactly.
If you can't figure out how to read a license that's got a vertical or horizontal stripe, let's give you a scanner. That'll help you figure it out.
Well, so I just want a clarification, John. Were you thinking that we make it mandatory in the ordinance that every alcoholic beverage served needs to have, that you require a presentation of the ID? Is that what you were talking about?
No,
Like
I'm
you said in
saying if
Nashville?
you have a violation like we do here, you just say, Yep, you have to pay $500 and you have to have a scanner because obviously we need help on reading licenses.
Well, and again, where we've run into problems with that is at what level of scanner do you have? So we could do that if you fail, that you have to get a scanner, but what's the level? Because, we saw the demonstrations where if there's one certain level of scanner that will tell you that you have an ID. And then there's other levels of scanners that'll tell you that ID is a fake, so.
At least one that does math.
I just think for now, we already have scanners that we have. And they showed us, and it worked pretty well. So we actually we want them to be in use. And so, and it should be for any license. Doesn't matter if it's the biggest or the smallest. That's what I think. And it should be, if you have a violation, then you have to have it for a period of time, whether it's 6 months or 12 months or whatever. But it's a discussion we need to have. But that's my vision, that it's something that goes along with the.
Yeah, I agree. I think with the scanner, when we use the word scanner, there is obviously a lot of different ones that we had, but the one that we did have the presentation with, that they said was better than the TSA, that was 99.9. And at that time, I had a brand new driver's license, and it didn't recognize that because it downloads constantly, and it's a very accurate scanner. So I think that's the scanner that we need to talk about. Because I don't think we want to say you need to have a scanner and then have that scanner just read the date of birth where it's a fake ID. We want to make sure that we provide a scanner that is very accurate to recommend the place to have, I guess, if that makes sense.
Anyway, it's an ongoing discussion, and I apologize for not letting you speak. So go ahead and introduce yourself if you don't, and go ahead and make your comments.
Yep, gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm not here to seek into not paying the penalty, but I'm asking to see if you can reduce the penalty, because as you can see the sheet in front of you, we almost half a year and we pay only $53 in alcohol tax, which is come out to $564 in sales and alcohol. So not a whole lot of selling alcohol in our restaurant, and during the compliance checks, me and one employee, and I asked her to check the ID first, and then this out of battery, and then she calculated in her head, and she didn't calculate properly, and we understand it's our fault, and then we should. No problem, we paid $1,000 fine, but just come here to see if you can just reduce the fine to 500 something.
So can I ask you a question? So is that what you have as a scanner?
No, it's just like it's a calendar to tell you when is 21. So it was out of battery, and the restaurant just me and one employee, and
Okay. I got you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Can I ask you, so if we had a scanner that the city would provide, would you use something like that? Do you think that would help you?
Oh, more than happy to.
See, so I don't know. And I know, Nancy, that we have to follow the process and make sure that we do it correctly, but there's got to be a way that we can, and on the flip side, we also want to know as a city, are they working well? And we want to learn more about it too, so.
I would say that they could voluntarily participate in that program with
Okay.
that scanner. It's just not something that can be
Okay.
ordered at this time.
Okay. Any other comments?
No, I'd just say to negate getting a fine, I would spend the money on the front side to get the scanner that works. If you say you're willing to use it, I would just protect myself, protect your business investment, and I think it'd be a win-win. So just my opinion.
So can I ask you, Steve, so the recommended fine is $500? Is that what it is right now? Is it,
So there's two failures. One is failure to server train, that's a $500 fine. And then the other is failure of the compliance check, and that's a $500 fine. So we're looking at a total of $1,000.
I have a question. The $1,000, is that something that we wouldn't necessarily have to do? I mean, we could do a lower amount?
I guess I'm gonna look to Nancy on that.
Yeah, there isn't any discretion for the amount of the fine for the violations. should you find that violation. So no, it wouldn't be a lower amount. It does say first offense is a $500 and then it goes up from there. So there
we have
isn't
the-
any discretion.
Do we
that
have the
is-
authority to waive the fine if they will comply with having a scanner for a 6-month period, as city provided?
No, that is not presently in the ordinance terms. There was a waiver provision in the past, and that was actually removed because of the amount of discretion that was being exercised. There was some concern about unfairness to some. So it actually, there is no opportunity to waive the fee. If you find a violation, it is a $500 fine.
So why are we discussing if there's no opportunity to waive the fee?
There's always the opportunity to appeal, and that's essentially what it is. So
Is this are we at an appeal here or what?
it's his opportunity to address the board.
If there is no opportunity to change it, why do we have the opportunity to address the board?
It's just part of the.
Yeah, so the applicant can come in and request that you do not find a violation. As for the fee, he can ask, but there really isn't any provision for that in the ordinances. But he does have an opportunity to be heard regarding the violations.
Would that be done on the front side when we made the motion and vote to be present?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, we made the motion to make these, on our last meeting, correct?
Previously, yeah, but
Wouldn't
I
that be
did,
the time to state your case or no?
yes, it was, and I didn't provide proper notice, and that's why we're kind of doing a reset here.
I apologize.
No, yeah, that's fine.
And Commissioner?
Yep, go ahead.
Sir, and tell me if I got this wrong, because you were here before, right? Because this is the second time this has happened?
Yes, sir.
And if I remember, what you told us at that time was that you're the owner and you always serve the alcohol. But one day there was you were busy or you were in the back getting a truckload or a delivery or something, and the person came out, or the person went ahead and put the beer down. As I remember, I think it was, they thought they put it down in front of who was probably the officer. And then when they came back, the beer was in front of the gal or the underage person.
That's correct, sir.
So at that time, we waived it, or we decided not to do the violation. Nancy's, I think that's good, but I think for this to happen again, like you said, you're a small business, it's you and another person. I think there's a problem. And whereas this might not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, I think it is. That again, somebody was served, and the server training thing, I mean, I don't see any way to do that, so.
Can I ask you a question? So has that employee, are they server trained now?
Yes.
And are you server trained too?
Yes, I'm a server trainer, yes.
Okay. I mean, it's $1,000. That's a lot of a fine, and I wish we had the flexibility of having them use a scanner, because I think that would help their business. That's the frustrating part. You have any other comments or questions? Otherwise, then Steve, what you're recommending is to be two $500 fines, correct?
That would be the recommended motion.
Okay.
Sorry, if I could clarify. The motion would be first to find a violation of a compliance check, which is serving a minor, and then there would be a second motion. So we need to have the findings of the violations. And the second motion would be for finding a failure of the mandatory server training.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, if somebody's willing to make the motion?
I will make the motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I guess my discussion would be, so this will go to the city commission next?
Correct.
And then would he have the opportunity to appeal it? Let's say that hypothetically the commissioner approved this action, then he could appeal it. Then who would it go to? Back to the city commission? or to us?
No, so we will put it on, we provide him notice that, of this finding, and then he has, I believe it's a 10-day period to tell us that if he wants to appeal to city commission. If he wants to appeal to city commission, what we've typically done, now they've been different situations, but we've generally had a special city commission meeting. You know, and again, those have been different situations, whether it's over serving or something like that. But that's his opportunity to appeal to the city commission. If in that 10 days he notifies or doesn't notify me, then it would just go on city commission on consent agenda.
No, and I hope you don't mind me asking this question, because it doesn't come back to the liquor control, it's appealed to the city commission.
Correct. And if city commission were to find in favor of this, then he could still appeal to district court.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, clarification, I would need two motions because there's two findings. One would be a failure of the compliance check, and the second motion would be the failure for the mandatory server training. And so we want to vote on both of those, please.
I'll make the motion on the server training and on the serving. So I'll make both motions if that's you want to proceed. Correct?
Yep.
Sorry.
So you're gonna make, let's do one at a time. So motion to find a violation of server training, failure to server train, right?
Okay.
And so Scott made the motion and
Yep.
Bob,
Second?
second?
Any other discussion? So let me ask you, do you understand how this goes now? So however this goes, then it goes to the city commission, and then the city commission will vote on it. Then if you want to appeal it, you will have the opportunity. Do you follow that, don't you?
It sounds complicated, but that's okay. We will pay the fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, I apologize because I don't want you to be confused. And so the other thing is, if you wouldn't mind talking to Steve afterwards to make sure that you have your opportunities to appeal and things like that.
Yeah, it sounds really complicated, so we'll pay the fine. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a motion and a second on the first. And so any other discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Then the second motion would be to find a failure of the compliance check.
I'll make a motion to find a failure of the compliance check.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Very good. And now C, license renewal update. Steve?
So we did get our renewals out. We tried to email this time. We were going to send out our mass license renewal by email, and then we ran into some technical difficulties. And so we got the license renewals out about a week late, but we'll get those back shortly. And again, just as a reminder, because we're going to be changing to a quarterly renewal system, we're renewing everybody as of July 1st, so their licenses right now are good to June 30th. Renew everybody as of July 1st, and then we're going to break it down into groups and do a fourth of them at a time. The purpose of that is so that police can do background checks. All of the people listed on the renewal that we get in now will be grandfathered in up to June 30th. And so when they do the background checks, they're not going to look into somebody's past, that we're just going to look from June 30th to the current time. So looking forward or moving forward with it. So, and then, so if your renewal fee was $2,000 and you're in September, what you would pay is $500. So just for the 1 quarter, right? And then that would get you to the next September. So there were some questions at City Commission about process, and I think that the commission, hopefully they understood it, but just wanted to update this board too, so that you have a grasp too on how this is going forward.
Any other comments on that? But basically what you're saying, Steve, is in the past, everybody, it was once a year and now it's going to be more staggered.
Yep,
Is
more
that the-
staggered. And then the other thing is doing the background checks.
Okay.
In the past, we didn't do background checks on an annual basis. So we have some people that have had their licenses for 30 or 40 years. And other than the first time that they first got checked, there's never been any, look into their backgrounds or anything like that. So
And so if any of the liquor license owners have any questions, they should contact you or your staff.
Yep.
If they have questions about how the timing and things like that. And so how did you determine the staggering of that? Is that just,
we don't have that quite figured out yet.
okay,
We're going to split it up. We're going to try to keep license holders that have multiple licenses so they're all together. And then to try to split it up, some FAs, some A's, some C's, some F's, that kind of stuff. So we're still working through it.
but you're also doing that because of the staff time that it will take and also for police to do the background checks. If we did it all at once, it would just be a huge job. Whereas if it's staggered, then there's a little more time for the staff to keep up with it. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. In the past, and especially, when we were tracking server training compliance and some of that kind of stuff, it was pretty much our all-consuming job for 2 months.
Right.
So this way, yes, it'll split it up. It'll make it a little easier. It's just, some people are going to fill out their renewal information, send it in, and then in July, they're going to get renewal and,
Okay.
here's your license to renew, so there's going to be a few people that'll get that right away.
Okay.
But we'll work through those questions as they come up.
Okay, very good. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, that's the last item on the agenda, so,
Excuse me, Chairman.
yes.
Can we do another item to the agenda, or do I have to put it on the agenda for next meeting?
It depends. How should we, if it's just a general comment or if you have a specific thing, we
I want to
could,
make a motion to change the or recommend a change of the ordinance, but we can put it on the agenda next time.
That'll have to be an action item for next time, yeah. Maybe we can work with what your language would be, and then we would have something for the board to look at.
Sure.
That sound all right?
Yep.
okay. Very good. With that, that's the end of our meeting, so we are adjourned. Have a good afternoon.